Taking place in Athens, Georgia, Sanford Stadium, Georgia Tech, them Yellow Jackets, taking on the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia's number 6 currently in the AP, but from a spread perspective, Georgia is favored by 19.5, and the over-under is 53.5. Carson Beck coming off of a 4-touchdown performance, looking to continue that against some Power 4 competition this week.
Yeah. 6 wins in this series in a row for Georgia. But Georgia Tech right now is one of those teams that's playing a little bit of spoiler. Like coming out in the year when they beat Florida State, we thought that meant something. We saw what Florida State was, but then what they did against Miami, I think that they're kind of built for this game. Like this Georgia Tech team has already won a high marquee matchup. And while Georgia has punched its ticket to the SEC championship game, should they lose this one and lose in that game, the conversation could be a little bit different around their playoff chances. So Georgia Tech has a lot to play for in this one, and,
Yep.
and that could play a role in it. The mentality of that.
Definitely could play a role in it. And the Georgia Tech team is rolling year over year, right? This is their second year getting at least 6 wins. They're 7-4 right now, 5th in the ACC. Like you mentioned, big win over Miami. So you've already beaten what looks to be one playoff team. You have an opportunity to beat another one here on the road. And for fans that are listening to this, whether they're college football casuals or locked in Georgia or Georgia Tech fans, they know that game last year that took place in Atlanta was very close, 31-23. It came down to the wire, and so this Tech team, it seems like it doesn't matter who they put at quarterback. Whether it's Philo or Aaron Philo or if it's going to be Haynes King, they're still finding ways to win games.
Yeah, and it's the tough, task at hand of trying to stop both. They did such a good job against Miami of in third down switching up personnel, bringing in Haynes King or switching it out, and that confusion I think was a huge piece to how they were able to keep that rolling. So I think they'll play the 2 QB system in this one. Philo taking more of the passing snaps and Haynes King doing a little bit more of the running, throw a little here and there, but it really throws off a defense. And this is a Georgia team right now. They're winning games, but it feels incomplete where if the defense is playing really good, the offense is not. If the offense is playing really good, the defense is not, just like last week against UMass. They're not fully complete. So could this be a situation where it's a shootout or
which is scary because if it is complete, and we're in the last game of the season, so we're using this if we see a complete game. I think we kind of saw one a little bit against Tennessee. If we see a full complete game, this could get ugly. But if we see what we saw, like you mentioned with UMass, Georgia Tech is going to be able to score. They're going to be able to build some confidence, and Georgia could still win, but it could be a little bit closer than maybe how they want the game to be.
Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about Georgia Tech's defense because we know aside from Carson Beck last week, he played really, really well against, an inferior team, obviously, but his roller coaster has been evident this year, the up and downs of it. Miami, number 1 points per game in the country. Georgia Tech held them 20 less when they played. They knew how to shut down a team that was playing proficient offense.
Yep.
I think that they have things dialed up for this game. So it is up to Georgia to come out with their best foot forward. I think if Georgia puts their best foot forward, they win both sides of the ball.
Yep.
It's do they do that? They look super porous last week on defense. There's been some turnover struggles that seem to be getting a little bit better, but they've let teams hang around, except for maybe Texas and Auburn. They tend to turn it up kind of late in games.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, right? Because that defense, like you mentioned, did a good job of kind of holding Cam Ward to a much more contained game than usual. And typically, what Carson Beck's challenge has been interceptions, right? Over the past couple of games, he's had 6 touchdowns and 500 yards. I think he's only had 1 interception. But if he throws an interception in this game, this would be his 5th game out of 7 games having 1 interception this year. On the other side for Tech, they've only collected 5 interceptions a season, puts them bottom 2 in the ACC. So if that is not a challenge for Carson Beck, this defense can definitely hold teams to lower point totals. You talked about it with the Miami game, but if they can't force turnovers, that has kind of been typically Georgia's kryptonite in some of these games.
Yeah. And, looking at kind of some keys for that game, I think that you're absolutely right. I mean, for me, though, in this game, I think that the key for both teams is the same, and I think it comes from the linebacker position. Right now, on Georgia's side, from the linebackers style, you're going to have 2 quarterback system running. It's a lot on the IQs of those guys who are going to be ball hawking and watching what's going on. Why I think Georgia's going to win this game is because of the level of play that they have at that position. They have that higher IQ. They're built for games like this. Now, on the other side, Georgia Tech, in the same vein, we've seen Carson Beck struggle with underneath coverage, which is where you're going to have those guys there. You do have some injuries, ETN day-to-day, Bell day-to-day. They're both expected to play, but Nate Frazier's the key back. I think he'll get 20-plus carries. Should ETN not be able to play. So it is up to your linebackers to shut that down. So to me, those are the keys to the game, but I like Georgia's skill level and just the talent level being higher as the reason for me.
Yeah, and I think the skill and talent level, at least stars wise, looks pretty spread out, but I think it's a little bit closer than in terms of on the field. We'll call it like on the field strength versus weight room strength. But ultimately, I agree. I like Georgia in this one, and they're playing for all the marbles. Obviously, made the SEC championship. I'm in agreement with you. They need to win this one to continue to kind of hold that spot, and not make the SEC championship game a must win for them, in order to make the playoffs.
Yeah. So, final scores, Georgia right now, 19.5, 20-point favorites. This year so far, Georgia's 2-8 against the spread in games that they're favored. Not that it means a whole lot, but it's, like I said, a team that lets teams hang around. So I like Georgia winning, not by 20. I think 28-17 in Georgia's favor.
I think we were pretty close in that one. I think I said 30-15 for that one.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be, I think, a closer game. Georgia turns it on maybe a little bit later, scores again to cover or something like that. But I could see Georgia Tech having the ability to drive down a few times.
Yep.